Hey everybody, David Duford here, owner of Duford Insurance Group. The purpose of today's video is to go into detail about how you can take steps to make $200,000 in annual premium selling final expense in your first year. What I'm going to be talking about today in detail really is all the components that you need to be concerned with in order to hit an audacious, challenging yet achievable goal like writing $200,000 in premium in your first year. So we're going to go over a lot of different elements because this isn't just an idea that we hope for. We have to put together a strategy, right, in order to make this work. So I'm filming this right now in my insurance sales success group. If you're interested in that, it's a free training group at davidduford.com/ISS. I do my videos here now live before they hit YouTube. So if you want like a sneak peek before it goes live on YouTube, as well as a bunch of training materials, scripts, my books for free, go to davidduford.com/ISS. So let's jump right in. So final expense, it's not a complicated business, but it's not easy. If anybody says it's easy, they're lying to you. It's a hard business, but it's simple nevertheless. And so you just need to know what steps to put into this in order to output the goal that you want, whether it's 200,000, 100,000, 400,000, whatever your number is. What we're going to go through today is the sequential reverse engineering process to arrive at your goals from all of the elements that matter. So let's jump right in. So the first thing I think a lot of agents ask is about how leads work. What leads should I be using or working with, and how many leads should I be using and working with if my goal is to write $200,000 in premium? So the first thing with leads, and I'll address this up front because this is a common question, and then we'll kind of break down the numbers a little further, is that with leads, there's really two kinds of leads that work well in the final expense that at least Duford Insurance Group works with, and this is what's gotten us the most consistent success. I'm sure there's others out there that are pretty good, but we kind of stick to what we know. The first kind, and this would be strictly if you're going face-to-face, would be direct mail leads. So direct mail leads are, you don't actually like walk to the mailbox and mail anything. You contact a mail house and you say, hey, I want a particular kind of final expense lead. Most of the time, they already have them designed. You don't even have to think about what to put on the card. And they print the lead, they take your money up front, and then they use a lead that gives good response rate. And then that goes out. And then 3 to 4 weeks later, you start getting what's called replies or responses back, because these are kind of cards, like if you can imagine, this is like an envelope goes out. It's just a postcard, but you get the idea. They open it up, and then there's a detachable thing that they can fill out, sign off, and send back. That's what the responses are. That's what you're getting back. And that's your lead that you use to set an appointment or to just drive by randomly door knock to get in. Why do we like direct mail? Well, direct mail, if one thing that my piece of advice, if you're just getting into business of any kind, the best thing in life, if you're looking for a sure shot, is just to duplicate what has been proven to work already. The nice thing about this business, it's old, it's boring, and we already know what works pretty consistently. And direct mail is a strategy from a lead perspective that's proven to work time and again. I started with direct mail in 2011. We're talking 12 years ago. It still works, and it probably worked decades before I was even in the business. So point is, that would be a great strategy to start with as a first source of leads. An alternative form of leads, or if you're doing telesales, would be to originate or purchase some sort of digital-based lead. And what most of our agents are doing in Duford Insurance Group are using Facebook-generated leads that they either purchase from a vendor that knows how to do all the lever polling to get the leads to you, or they learn how to self-generate from some sort of course and then basically manage their own marketing. Now, what's the advantage to a Facebook lead? Well, first of all, they're faster than a direct mail lead. You can get leads in days as opposed to weeks or even almost a month. So Facebook leads are great because they are a quick turn lead. They get them very fast. And for telesales, they also have the benefit of being a lot less expensive. This is one of the downsides of using direct mail for Facebook, or excuse me, for telesales, because the cost point is so high. And with telesales, you don't have the privilege of knocking on doors because they could be all over the country. So you have to have a cheaper lead. And with Facebook leads, you can ascertain interest at a much lower cost per lead. And they're quick turn, like I said. You can get a large volume of them. It's pretty simple to get. So those are the two sources of leads that I would recommend. Now, if I'm full-time in the business, the other question you want to ask is, how many leads do you need? But before we get to that, let's do a little reverse engineering with the premium so that we can kind of break down this big goal into smaller goals. And then I think from there, we can more easily derive the amount of weekly leads, because we'll have some activity metrics and some goals that we have with how much we close. So $200,000, pretty simple. All we need to do is take that number and then divide it by 12. So you guys at home, help me out here. I'm going to pull up my calculator, and I'm going to do $200,000 times 12. All right. I think the number is $16,667. So let's just round it up to 17,000. Okay. So in other words, if we want to write $200,000 in premium, then we need to write approximately 17,000 a month. Does that make sense, everybody? And then if we take it one step more down another level, we need to also measure on a weekly basis of what to do. So I'm going to divide 17,000 by 4. And that gives us a weekly premium amount of $4,250. So we're now at a little bit more of an achievable and wrap our heads around goal of every week we should be writing $4,250 in AP, annual premium. I'll use AP for short a lot in describing this. And so from here, if this is our goal, then the next step is to figure out, well, what kind of activity and what kind and volume of leads should we put into the system in order to achieve that? So let's talk about some expectations with the leads we've described, as far as what we can expect from the number of leads we need to the conversion metrics of those leads, and therefore give us, again, a system of what we need to do in order to accomplish these goals. So first of all, if you're running direct mail leads, our goal for our agents at DeFord Insurance Group is to close half of your presentations. Now, I'll take a step back. That's regardless if you do direct mail or Facebook as a face-to-face agent, for every presentation you get in the door of, we want you to sell half of those. Okay. Now, sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a lot more. We have agents that'll close 2 out of 3 presentations, right? But 50% is a challenging and achievable number. And I think a good number just to make an estimation off of. So what we're saying here is that to make a sale, you need to run 2 appointments. Everybody understand that? 2 appointments approximately, right? So we're going to do 2 appointments to make 1 sale. The other thing here we got to know is, well, what's the average sale value, right? In other words, how much premium per sale is average when you're selling face-to-face or over the phone? My numbers are approximately $800 annual premium, but this does vary. I have agents that are up to $1,000 AP as their average case size. I have agents as low as $600 AP. And I tend to think this is, to some extent, how the agent is selling the deal. We may end up talking a little bit about that, how to not inflate the value, but to increase the value of the annual premium per sale. There's some things you can do in a presentation that help. And then the other thing is, maybe it's just geographic areas just don't support a higher premium. You go to a poor area versus California, tends to be a little bit higher. Sometimes even telesales has a higher premium average in our experience than face-to-face. So there's some variations. 800's a good middle number just to kind of guess with, or to estimate with, I should say. So from here, all we're going to do is then take 800 and then divide it into 4,250. So you guys do this at home with me. And you can take 600 if you want to be super conservative. I wouldn't do 1,000 in this estimation just because, hey, if you get it, great. But I'd rather you be safe than sorry. I'd rather you do more than what you really end up needing to do, right? Just to be safe. So if we do 800 in the 4,250, that's 5.31 sales. So for me, I just round that up. That's 6 sales is what I need to do in order to hit my weekly goal of getting to eventually 2,000 AP. Now, the other factor here that I would put in, if we do 4,250, 4,250, the weekly goal, and if we divide it by 600, we get 7.08. So you're somewhere in the 6 to 7 application range is what I would make your goal being if you aspire to write 200,000 a year in final expense. Everybody with me so far? Anybody have any questions? Again, if you have questions, if you're watching this live on the Insurance Sales Success Forum, You can post them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and I'll call on you. But bottom line here, what's going on is we're deriving the numbers, right, to what we need to do to get to the goal, because it's the activity that gets us to our goal. It's the input of what we do to get the ultimate output, which is our goals, right? So let me ask you all a question who are here live. If this is our goal, 200,000, and we've done all the math and we have 6 to 7 policies of what we need to write, and we're selling face-to-face, we'll get to telesales in a second. How many presentations do we need to run if half of our presentations close? Pretty simple math, right? So for every application, we need to run 2 appointments, right? Because one of those appointments won't close, the other will. So all you have to do is really just multiply the number of apps that you get by 2 to give you an idea of how many presentations you need to run. So in this case, if I want to, right, that's right, Chelsea, if I want to have a goal of this every single week, I need to run between 12 and 14 completed presentations. But here's the thing. Do we always want to be aggressive in our estimations with activity or premium? No. We want to give us a leeway, right? We don't want to do the bare minimum. We want to exceed the average or the expectation. So for me, I would tell you what you need to do is 15 presentations a week, bare minimum, okay? Now, maybe it's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 15 to 20 is where you need to be to play it safe to hit this number every single week, okay? Because what'll happen is some weeks you're the pigeon, and other weeks you're the statue, right? Like some weeks you'll write everybody you see, and then other weeks nobody wants to buy nothing, right? I know I've had times where I've ran 15 appointments in a row. Nobody wanted to buy in 1 week. I was about to jump off the ledge. And then literally the second half of the week, I did another 15 appointments and I wrote like 8,000 in premium. It was a great week, but midweek I was ready to quit. I thought I lost my mojo, right? So we want to overcompensate for these averages. Again, it's just like any kind of financial projections or pro formas. You're running a business. This is a pro forma to an extent. We want to be able to operate and assume worst case scenario. I think it's the safest bet. So I would be looking to 15 to 20% or 15 to 20 presentations is what you want to book. And not to mention there are things like no shows that certainly happen. Not everybody can show up to their appointment. There's the undulations every week to week that we all experience as well. So my goal is 15 to 20 appointments face-to-face. For telesales, it's about a quarter of your completed presentations are going to close. So it's more like 1 out of 4. So here what we're looking at is we need to do about approximately 25 to 30 completed presentations every single week in telesales to write 6 or 7 applications. If we're doing an outbound strategy like we talked about where we're buying leads and then calling on them, right? So that's the activity. Now, the thing is, we've got our goal, right? We know how much activity from telesales or face-to-face final expense that we need to do in order to hit 200,000 a year. But what's the missing element, y'all? Presentations, estimations on premiums. The last little bit here is how many leads do we actually need to get, right? What is the number of leads that we need to get in order to complete this, okay? So doing the math here, if for direct mail, face-to-face, you should be able to get into half of the doors consistently over the long haul, month to month. It's going to undulate a little bit. You should be able to get into 50% of those leads and do presentations. So in other words, if I buy 20 leads, I should be able to get appointments by door knocking or calling to set appointments to see them into half of them. Again, some agents are better, some agents are worse, right? You'll know your numbers eventually, but 50% of your leads converted into presentations is an achievable goal. So in other words, if our goal is to do 15 presentations or 15 presentations to 20 presentations a week face-to-face, how many direct mail leads do we need? We need double that, right? So we need 30 to 40 direct mail leads. Now, I personally think as a newer agent, it's better to start at 30 just to kind of get your swing of things, get used to the business, and then scale up the lead flow as you start to hit your numbers as you please, because you may want to take it beyond 200,000. You may want to double that, right? And so the leads that come in are the biggest driver to what the ability of you being able to hit those presentations. So in other words, if my goal is 15 completed presentations a week to hit my 200,000 AP goal, if all I get is 20 direct mail leads, am I going to have a good statistical chance of hitting that? No. It's just the numbers don't work out. It's just the numbers are the numbers, unless you're a unicorn, but I'm not expecting you to be, and nor should you. I'm expecting you to be average, right? I mean, you're well above average. You're on my call. I mean, obviously you're the greatest audience in the world, but you need to think that you're not nearly as good as anybody else. And that the difference, and I think this is a really important mindset, is that I'm going to make up with it with sheer volume of effort and work. Does that make sense? Don't depend on your talents when you're talking about this business. You may be talented, you may be a great salesperson, but assume you're average or worse and make up for it with sheer work ethic and just volume of activity, because that's ultimately what makes a difference. Anyway, so 30 direct mail leads a week is what I would be at if I was using direct mail. Now, Facebook's a little bit different. Facebook leads depends on where you get the leads from for face-to-face agents. I think you could probably get into a third to a half of the presentations. There's a big variance there because of the leads to book at the presentations. It just depends on the vendor you get and the quality of the lead. There are some junk Facebook lead vendors, and there's some really good ones. You got to know who's who. And so like with us, we know good ones. And my goal is I would probably get about 40 in order to get about 15 presentations of the quality lead vendor we use for Facebook leads. But I would definitely get more than I would get with direct mail. So Facebook is usually not as good quality as direct mail. Again, there are some vendors that are really, really close, maybe even arguably the same. But usually you need to make up for that with more volume of Facebook. So as a rule, if you go the Facebook route for leads for final expense face-to-face, do more than what we describe with direct mail, because usually the quality isn't as good. Okay. Now, the other side of this is telesales. Now, for telesales, again, we said 25% of your presentation will close, at about 25% of them you'll actually be able to do a presentation with. So the numbers here are pretty easy. If I'm doing 25 to 30 presentations a week, or completed presentations on the phone, I need 25%. I need 4 times the amount because if you do the 25 divided by 25%. To get the amount of appropriate lead volume in order to hit that goal. So for example, I need to have somewhere between 100 and 125 Facebook leads every single week that are telesales based to give myself a shot, an earnest ability to leverage the conversion ratio in my favor to write 6 to 7 apps or approximately 200,000 a year. So, and they can be so hit and miss. Yeah, that's 100%. It just depends on who you're using. And, but yes, if you, so I had a conversation, well, I didn't have a conversation, heard it from another agent in my agency. He or she shall remain nameless, was complaining that the Facebook leads kind of dried up, the vendor she was using. And she's very upset and not happy. And doing a little digging, I found out that she was only buying 40 a week, maybe calling them once or twice. And because she's like really good on the phone, he or she, he was writing 4 or 5 apps out of every 40 leads, which is a phenomenal total conversion metric, right? Like it is not the norm. And there was just a nice run there where the numbers worked in his or her favor. And ultimately what happened, that stopped. He or she got mad, angry, upset, and didn't know what to do. But the answer was clear. Buy more leads, call more, be on the phone more, right? Because it's not just enough leads. You got to it's not just about the sales presentation. You've got to have enough leads to manifest your goals. And you also, especially with telesales, have to have enough time on task, calling, talking to people to have the ability to have those conversations, right? And some people miss the mark on this. And it's not good. It is what it is, and there's just no way around it. So in short here, just to summarize, number 1, 15 to 20 face-to-face appointments is my goal. If I'm face-to-face, to get 6 or 7 applications, maybe I'll probably end up with more, but that's just a good conservative presentation volume to hit that. if I'm telesales, 100 to 125 leads a week to get 6 or 7 sales. Again, conservative. My goal is to write more than that, but I think that is a volume of leads that will lead me to that ultimate outcome. Okay. And then we know how much leads to buy, what kind of leads to buy. Pretty straightforward there, right? So there's a couple other things here that we do need to talk about that I just, these are more of the intangibles. Like what we just described is the easiest problem to solve. I had an agent once that came to me and he said, Dave, I'm not happy with my sales results. I said, okay, how many apps did you write last week? 3. I was like, okay, yeah. And he wanted double or triple. And so I went into this same conversation. I said, so how many presentations did you do? I did 5. I was like, okay, it's not a lot, but it's a good ratio, right? 3 apps, 5 presentations. That's actually a very high conversion ratio, right? Higher than the average. And I said, well, how many leads did you buy? 10. Okay, well, the good news is everything's working like it should, except that you're not doing your part to get enough leads to talk to, right? 10 direct mail leads to close 3 apps, and you're expecting 6. It's not going to happen. Just the numbers aren't there. You're not a savant. You shouldn't think of yourself as that. You should realistically have the lead volume in place to manage the difference. And that was an easy solution to solve. And what we've talked about are the easy solutions, right? This is not something that's groundbreaking. If it's been helpful for you, great. But what we're about to describe really is the X factors, okay? Because this is where agents win or lose. And it's not on leads it's not on leads per se, or the system. It's in the execution of it and the little intangibles that come along with it. So I want to hit on that for a second. Number one, we've talked about this. It's the time on task. I've been recruiting agents, training them 3,000 plus since 2013. And the biggest impediment many times is the agent's own mindset and not embracing the fact that you just have to go out and work hard. When I say work hard, what does that mean? If you're wanting goals like this, you better commit 50 to 60 hours a week. Okay. If you're brand new to this business and you think you can jump in and do it 15 hours, 20 hours, 2 days a week, and then make 200,000, I'm sorry, unless you're just a genius or a savant, that's not going to happen. Okay. This takes time to develop an expertise and skill set. Okay. Now, over time, I know agents that have done exactly what I've described, but in the beginning, you need to commit yourself fully to this business. Okay. And we even see it in our business. We hire part-timers, which is fine. That's how I started, but we hire full-timers too. And it's amazing. The part-timers just don't get the same traction and don't have the same success as the full-timers do. Because their time on task is restricted. And there's good reason you don't want to leave your job, and I get it all. But at the same time, you're not giving yourself the full capability of what's possible. This is a tough situation to be in, understand, been there, done that. But the point being is that the more time that you're out there hustling, talking to people, seeing the people, making things happen, the more opportunity that you're going to run into. And so you cannot restrict that if you have big goals like what we've described, okay? Same thing with telesales. It's time on task. You know, the agents who do well are calling 10 hours plus a day, 5 to 6 days a week. I wish I could tell you all it took was 20, 30 hours. It's just not true. The ones who do more talk time close more deals. The ones who don't do more talk time don't close more deals. They fail. So you have a choice. How serious are you about this? And how much effort do you really want to put into this? In my opinion, if you really want what we're talking about, you need to go all in. You need to be totally and fully committed, not just in your mind, but in your actions, right? And that's tough, right? You got to do this for a full year to hit this goal, and for possibly many years. There's going to be a lot of distractions and things that get in the way. It's hard to sustain consistent output, but it's really what separates the winners from the losers in this business. Ultimately, it's not some magical presentation that just persuades random people at any length to buy from you. It's the consistent execution of the fundamentals over time that make the difference. Some other things that are really important too are the carriers. So at DeFord Insurance Group, in our final expense division, we teach agents to be brokers. Now, a broker, if you're new to the business, means we operate with multiple carriers. I'm not married to one company at DeFord Insurance Group. Our agents are not. We have access to several. Why is that important? Because no one carrier does the best job for underwriting. Some carriers do better than others, okay? And at the end of the day, my client's health is the main thing that I'm concerned with in order to determine which carrier goes where. Okay. So if I have one company, like some of these captive companies out there where you're stuck with one company, they make it sound like it's real easy for you, but it's not, because you're going to be forcing a client in many cases to take a plan that isn't the best for that client. And what that does is you're now a product pusher, not a true advisor, because you're not giving them options, you're pushing product. And the other side of that is you're at risk of losing those sales because they get replaced. And in the other side, losing sales because your product in many cases with these setups are uncompetitive or not competitive. So you couldn't make the sale because the client balks at the price, or maybe the product they have that you could have replaced if you're a broker and had options, you can't now because your product's overpriced. So some of these metrics here may be altered significantly downward if you're in a position where you have a restriction on carriers because you're a part of a one carrier operation. It's not that you can't be successful in those operations. It's just a lot harder to. The metrics are on the lower side and it becomes a much more difficult business. So my opinion is be a broker in this business. If you're new, look for agencies that offer multiple carriers that give your clients options so that you're not pushing product and putting yourself and your client in a bad spot. You'll ultimately make more sales and make more money and help more people. Again, that's what we do at Ford Insurance Group. I've always done that. I don't believe in the other model just because there's so much at risk. I see some questions coming in here. I'll answer those a little bit later. They sound like they're relevant, but not right now. Okay. So you can throw your questions down there. I'll get to them eventually. Okay. So carriers, other things, commissions. Now, what we've been talking about is not commissions. It's been annual premium. Why have we not talked about commissions? Because annual premium is basically the gauge in which we determine what our commissions are. Commissions can vary wildly across the board. They can be 50% in the final expense business. We start agents on our career 8-week program at 50 to 60% before we move them to brokers. This is if you wanted free leads because you can't afford fresh leads because your budget's tight. We have this 8-week career program to get agents up and running. We teach them the business. They get mentorship, right? And then after that, then they go full commission 100% plus on the broker side. But in the career side, they have access to multiple carriers. So they are truly brokers, just at a smaller commission. But anyways, the point is commission can be low like that, but they also can be high. But there's also other variables. Are you buying your leads or are you not? And the key thing is, depending on what your setup is, you want to make sure that your commission levels reflect the best for how your arrangement is possible. So for example, there are organizations out there that are very MLM-ish. They recruit anybody with a pulse, and you're at a lower commission to start because you're in a 10 or 15 or 20 person downline. And you wouldn't know it because most people don't recognize from the beginning this is a lot of MLM in this business, a lot of the recruiting nonsense. And what sounds good on paper actually doesn't realize in totality in the real world because your commissions are a lot lower. So this is why I advocate as an agent, make sure that you do your due diligence if you're coming into this business, or even if you're already in it. Make sure that you're getting paid what you're worth. Make sure that your commission levels actually facilitate your ability to be successful and be in a lucrative business model. A lot of them aren't. I've seen companies that you all have heard of that start agents at 50%, 60%, sometimes 70%, usually 50 or 60%, but they're responsible for paying leads that are $25 to $40 a piece. And sometimes they're old age leads too. And if you just do the math and apply the commissions to a simple breakdown, it just isn't any good, you know, but these companies know that and they take advantage of you because of that. So you got to do your due diligence, make sure you're getting paid fair, and what you're being paid, it reflects that. Because $200,000, there are people in this business that are writing this much that their actual take-home pay is terrible because they got wrapped up in an MLM, drank the Kool-Aid, and didn't do the math like we're doing, okay? And the last thing I'll add here, and then I'll start taking y'all's questions, is the intangibles. This is something that I really think is so important, and it's not talked about enough because, again, what this business generally revolves around is the flash, the fluff, the Kool-Aid, the stuff, right? And showing that to you. and the sleight of hand of them robbing you in a sense is you don't see that. The intangible stuff in this business matters. And what I would call the intangibles is the training protocol and the mentorship that you get. This is what I've always been focused on with my agency at DeFord Insurance Group. And we are now even more so focused on mentorship on a one-on-one basis and training. I think training is the X factor ultimately. You can have all of this stuff here, but if you're not well-trained, if you're not prepared for battle, and you overestimate this business, or worse, you're a part of an MLM that just says, watch these videos, don't bother me with questions, just figure it out. The odds are against you. And what we've discovered since I've made a strategy shift in my business at the beginning of the year, we went to a one-on-one mentorship model for every single agent that joins DeFord Insurance Group to sell final expense. Our success rates are through the roof. I haven't had as many as a percentage of agents that are successful now than at any point in my career, just the 3 short months that we've been doing this. In February, we had an 80% success rate for new agents that started making sales on telesales. And for the face-to-face side, it was 95% in February. This is contrasted against a 95% failure rate of the business. And why is this important? Because to me, it's been proven, and I've always been a training advocate, that the one-on-one mentorship is the X factor that makes a tremendous difference. And there are just some things that are best addressed with somebody in your corner who's a coach, who's a mentor that will help you through things, right? And I always thought, well, no big deal. They'll figure it out, because I always had great group training and video training, but I didn't do a lot of one-on-one training prior to January. And lo and behold, I was wrong. I mean, it's been mind-blowing how much success we've gotten out of agents simply because somebody's at their beck and call. They do one-on-one script role-playing preparation the first week before they go out in the field and sell leads. It's just amazing. So that's a very important intangible factor that can just tremendously build the upside potential. Even if your commission is not the highest it could be possibly, the mentoring side and the training can just exponentialize your results to be even better. So in short, this is how I would look at crafting a system to sell final expense successfully if your goal is to write $200,000 a year. So we'll summarize real quick, and then I'll take some questions here in the chat. Number one, break it down into a monthly and weekly goal. 4250 AP is what we're working for. Know your percentages on your closing rates. 50% of your direct mail should close in presentation. And so face-to-face, and then also for Facebook, you're going to need more leads for both of those. Or direct mail, you need about double your presentations. Facebook, about, 40 to 50 for every 15 to 20 appointments that you want to have face-to-face. And then for telesales, you need about 4 times the amount of completed presentations in order to support enough presentations to close 6 to 7 apps, which should average out to about 4250 a week in AP, which is 200,000 a year. And it's that simple. Like I said, it's not complicated. It is a business that you have to execute on consistently. That's the tough part of this business, guys and gals. It's just executing despite the troubles and the things in our lives that pop up, and continuously going out there and performing our process and being deliberate and focused on it. That's really where the magic happens. And then beyond that, the activity, making sure your work ethic is there at the highest level. Again, we recommend 50 plus hours a week as a new agent if you're full-time, just to give yourself the opportunity of time on task, of calling for 50 hours a week, or doing whatever you can to run appointments face-to-face or door knock 50 hours a week. Make sure your commissions are reflective of reality. Make sure you're not in an MLM. Do your due diligence. Ask to speak to successful agents. Vet the promises that are given by the agency. Good agencies will be happy to do that. Make sure, in my opinion, you have carriers access to multiple carriers. Try to avoid one carrier situations where you're not going to give your clients the best options. When you have multiple carriers, you can shop around, give the best bang for the buck for the client. And that means more sales, more quality of business that sticks for you, and more money. And last but not least, of course, my number one factor here, and I think this probably, they're all pretty important, but this is growing in importance for me for sure, is the mentoring and the training, especially the one-on-one mentoring. There's not a single person we've trained in the past 3 months that hasn't had profound value that has elevated their success, that they felt that the mentorship just didn't impact them. The mentorship is that important when it comes to script playing, objection rebuttal training, et cetera. Make sure you're getting some kind of training. Again, I'm very partial to what we do because it just works so freaking well. And just keep doing that for every single week and stick to it.